Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Behind the Lava Lava. We are Fiapoco Samoan vets here to chop it up on various topics, whatever comes to our mind. So it's been a minute. I'm your host, Spencer Harmon, and I'm joined today with my co-host and prez of Behind the Lava Lava, Michael Tan. It's good to be here, Mike. How you doing today?
Doing great. Just slowly getting off my allergies. It's been 3 months on and off, but slowly my cough is going away.
Yeah, I know
overall it's been good.
You've been battling that, so you're listening to audio only. People at home might hear some water swishing. It's because he's got to keep his throat moist, or he's going to be coughing at you the whole time. But no, it's good. Yeah, this year, 2024, it's been a good year. I'd say that as far as Behind the Lava Lava goes, it seems like we've been doing less of these episodes, but listeners rejoice because we decided to focus on quality instead of quantity. So, so there we go. But before we go any further, though, I just want to shout out our sponsor, Pacifica Foods. Michael, what can you tell us about them?
So Pacifica Foods, based here in Utah, formerly known as Pacifica Corned Beef Kitchen. But they have an event coming up in October. It's Sunday, October 27th. They have a specialty Polynesian buffet experience. So they have 2 times. There's a brunch time from 9:30 to 11 a.m. and a lunch time, 11 a.m. to 2:30. And what this is a Polynesian buffet. Don't miss out. In order for you to be able to participate or even get food, you have to pay first. You prepay through their Venmo. Once they hit 200 guests, they will close either the tickets or the walk-ins. But this will take place in Pacifica Event Center, which is in Sandy, 565 West Parkland Drive, Sandy, Utah. So if you're interested on a Sunday, I think they're going to do this twice a month. On a Sunday, if you are done with church, or even if you're not going to church and you want to enjoy a nice Polynesian buffet, hit up Pacifica Foods.
All right. Salute Pacifica Foods. Thank you very much for your continued support. Right, a lot of things coming up. I don't know about you, this year's really been speeding by. I think it's one of these weird things where I'm starting to measure time differently as I get older. It feels like just yesterday we were talking about Christmas is creeping up, but honestly, this whole year, I've never been that guy where it's like, oh man, can't wait for Christmas to come up. I'm like, I always enjoy the Christmas season, but I'm like, I got other things to do. But for real, since the Christmas season ended last year, I'm just like, oh man, I can't wait till the holidays come back. And it was my birthday last month, in August. And as soon as August started, I seriously was like, oh man, only 4 more months to Christmas. I'm like, and here we are. It's September. We're closing in on our Veterans Day dinner. It's coming up, the gala, so people be sure to go to the website, click the links and sign up. It's free to vets and a +1. Or is it just a whole family?
It's veterans and their +1. You can bring your family. You just have to message me. But the thing about our Pacific Island Veterans Day dinner gala is that it is fully booked. I've already booked it to the max, 350. What I'm proud of with this event is, we're continuing it. It's going to be annual, and I don't need to promote this event. The first quarter of the year, 50% of the seats were booked, and 3 months before the event, it's fully booked. So this event is to honor our veterans with a complimentary meal. There's going to be entertainment. We have a special guest, which we will announce soon, and yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I think I think of this event as going to a family reunion with family that you actually like. So it's going to be fun, but I do apologize if you can't make it this year because we're fully booked. But you can still message me so I can put you on a wait list, and if I like you enough, I'll push you in. So that's our dinner on November 8th, starting at 6 p.m. It's a Friday. So make sure that if you're attending the dinner to leave early because of traffic. And we start Palangi time. There is no island time on this. We start Palangi time.
No island time in this, all right? It's like, in fact, it's military time. If you're not 5 minutes early, you're late. Not 10, 15 minutes early, you're late, all right?
Yeah, we did have remember our hiccup last year that we started 30 minutes late, mainly because miscommunication with our color guard. But this year they're gonna be there on time, so no excuses.
Shout out to them because they did a good job. We had mix-ups with the time, but they delivered. So thanks again to them. So as I was, don't be clicking no links. You missed out. Too bad, so sad. Get there early next year. There will be a next year, so keep an eye out. But yeah, so as we speak, Mariah Carey is thawing out. So get ready for the cold weather. I'm looking forward to that. We are cooling down here in Vegas, but it is. I went shooting today, and it's still hitting 100, or it was 98, but that's still pretty much 100. So I'm looking forward to cooler days for sure. But anyways, just moving on. Let's get into the topic that we were going to talk about. We were kind of brainstorming a few ideas, like what can we talk about? We got no guests, which is kind of refreshing because I do like it when we just get to the crew together. Of course we, shouts out to Ati and T, everybody be busy, but that's why we have like the cast that we do is because, it's rotating. Sometimes we're available, sometimes we're not. I'd love to get their takes on this, but me and Michael are just going to kick it off. So this was, I got the idea for this one a few weeks ago. I was at Kalapu Jared's. Just kidding. What's up, Jared? Shout out. Thanks for hosting us. Just had a Fight Kava session. It's like some of these guys show up and they just have some really good conversation points to start talking about. We're going to get like in touch with our emotions today. So I hope everybody's ready. But they're out like, is it appropriate for men to cry? So it's going to be one of those, now, granted, we've said this before. I'm going to say it again. Neither of us are qualified psychologists or whatever. We're just, like I said, it's in my intro. We're just Fiat Poco Samoan vets, and we're just giving our takes on stuff. And this is one of our takes. It's like, is it okay for guys to cry? We got some questions revolving around there, so I know that's just what everybody wanted to hear. So we're here to answer it. So I'm going to kick it off to Mike. What's your take on it, man? Is it okay for guys to cry? That's kind of the broad question. We'll ask some more specific ones as we go on.
Well, starting off, it's a very difficult topic, mainly because, growing up, showing emotion was difficult, especially for me back in American Samoa, especially with the dad that I have. I have a Chinese father. And with him, he rarely showed any emotions growing up. So personally, to tell you the truth, is it appropriate to cry? My answer would be a no. I don't want to be politically correct or any of that. But for me, it's a big no, because it's hard to break out of the shell. It's hard to get rid of that taboo, man up societal norm that we grew up with. So just starting off, we're testing the waters right now. For me, it's a no.
So before I throw in my 2 cents, let me just kind of pursue that a little bit. You say no. So why do you think you side with that? Now, I know you mentioned your upbringing. It just kind of aligns with that. But is there a reason why it's not appropriate for men to cry, according to you? So, and are there circumstances that dictate that, like where it's okay here but not there?
I think for me, it's better off not crying, especially now that I'm a family man, married with kids. It's harder to show that weakness, to cry in front of people, especially your kids. As a father, you still want to be that macho man. You kind of want to be strong in their eyes. So there's a lot of other circumstances that contribute to this, especially in marriage. But it's like I mentioned before, that societal norm, it's almost like brainwashing me to think, hey, it's not okay to cry, but I know that society is evolving, that it's now okay to cry, but I'm still at that point where no, it's not.
Okay, fair enough. I think I was raised with a pretty healthy outlet on the idea, or a healthy idea of it, or balance, I guess, because I do remember being a kid. When my mom sussed at us, and I remember sometimes I'd be crying, and my mom, because we were getting what we deserved or whatnot, she disciplined us. She's like, "Hey, quiet, like, enough, stop it." Like, it was like the continuation of crying would lead to more sussing. So you want mom to get in a good mood and like stop being angry at you, you better stop that crying. It's like crying made it worse. And then sometimes we go cry to my dad, and my dad's like, hey, boys don't cry. Boys don't cry. It's like, but it's like, it's not that my dad was telling me that boys aren't supposed to cry. It was more like, basically, it's like he was trying to teach me the lesson that crying doesn't make the pain dissipate. You got hit. He's like, and my dad would break it down for me like that. He's like, hey, son, you got hit. Crying doesn't make it hurt any less. And it's like, and I was like, oh yeah, you're right. But I think it's like a good balance. But the thing is, why I say I had like kind of a healthy balance to this is that if I got hurt by, let's say, there was an accident in the yard or something, or a family member died or something, no, there was no discouragement there. In those cases, it was like, you're crying, they're crying too, we're all crying together, something like that. It was like, okay, no, like there's appropriate times, and I think that's healthy, because I think that if your reaction to every little thing is to cry, it's like, okay, you kind of, crying has no significance. It's like, all right, dude, you cry about everything. It's like, I don't know if like, there's the filmmaker Kevin Smith. Every time he like breaks down a movie, he talks about Batman, the guy cries, and it's just like, okay, what made Kevin Smith cry today? It's like he cries about everything. I was like, look, it might be a good movie, good show, but it's like you cry for everything, so it means nothing now. It's like, and so it loses its effectiveness. And so, like, I think if you cry about everything, you kind of water it down. Like, what is this? Is this really a significant moment? How? Because everything gets that reaction. But I guess there's a time and a place, and I think, that's obviously, I'm talking about my upbringing as a kid. As an older person, the scenario's kind of changed a little bit, I guess. At American United, we help when others won't. If you're in Utah and need a second chance at banking, they've got your back. They offer everything from business to personal banking to online services, credit, coaching, and financial mentoring. And they do it all with lower fees, higher dividends, and exclusive member rewards.
American United takes pride in helping their members succeed. Whether you need an auto loan, a credit card, or a retirement account, they have the perfect fit for your lifestyle. Plus, they show their appreciation for our veterans with special VA programs for those who have served in the U.S. military. And here's something really special. American United is the proud title sponsor of the annual Pacific Island Veterans Day Dinner Gala, demonstrating their commitment to our community and our heroes.
So whether you're buying your first house or planning your retirement, let American United Federal Credit Union be there for you. They're all about celebrating life's achievements, big and small. Remember, we help when others won't. Visit amucu.org to learn more and become a member today.
Yeah, I think when I was very young, up until like in elementary, I was a crybaby. And I remember when I always cried when I was little. My parents were always stern with their discipline. So like you, they would tell me, stop crying or don't cry with this and that. But when I cried in public, people were more to show empathy towards me. But in my household, there was no empathy, no telling me what's right and wrong. So I think that's where the confusion came in, and I learned the hard way of not to show any emotions or cry, because again, when you cry in front of people, especially Samoans or elders or parents, they will always discipline you or tell you, don't do this, but they wouldn't tell you a reason why. I think the upbringing in our Samoan culture is that tough. I forgot what the word, toughness, toughen up mentality. So yeah, it was very confusing point in my childhood for me when I cried. But at the same time, I didn't have that direction, that healthy direction to kind of lead me as to, why should when to cry, why I cry, and all that. So
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I think there's a lot to say about like there's a time and a place for everything. I think I've shared this on the podcast before, but like I was going through a divorce in 2018. And I'm sorry because I do bring up my divorce a lot, but and I don't mean to, because it's not even like sour grapes towards my ex or anything. It's really not. Like, but it is one of my marriage and my divorce are probably the most significant events of my adult life. So I'm not digging this up, but in 2018 I was going through that, and I was on a deployment, and I was on my third deployment, and I was out there and started getting messages from my wife, and saying we're going through troubles, and the D word comes up, the divorce, and it's like it's kind of it was wrecking me, like because I'm overseas, I can't even be face to face trying to deal with this. But what I did is that it hit me. I probably teared up. I was like, it was all messing with my head, but I got to a point where I'm like, I can't be like this right now, because at this point I still had 6 months of a deployment left to finish. It was probably about 6 months. And I'm like, I have a job to do. Like, the Army sent me here to do a mission. People depend on me to get this job. It's like one of those things where it's like certain jobs are just too important to not do well. And if I'm mopey and sad and feeling sorry for myself, I'm not getting my work done. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to be sad. I'm going to be mad. And it's like, I know this is not a healthy thing that any doctor or psychologist or therapist might recommend. Maybe they would. I doubt it. I'm pretty sure this is not healthy, but I would push it all down. I'm like, I'm not going to be sad. I'm going to be mad, because when I'm mad, I can be productive. I can be angry. I'm like, I'm going to go hit the gym. I'm going to go do my job. I can't, but if I'm sad, I just want to be mopey and just sit around and get nothing done. You know what I mean? And so like, that's why I'm like, the time for crying wasn't then, because I had to get my job done. I had soldiers depending on me to do my part, and I was not going to be the weak link or the single point of failure for this mission. I can get home and I can deal with it then, and the crying can come later. But I think one of the places where this was unhealthy for me is it took a while for any of this to come out, because I was so set on like, no, I'm angry. I'm not the one supposed to be sad. I'm the one who's supposed to be, whatever. Like, so it probably was not the best for my health in the long run, but I do kind of stand by what I did, because when I'm angry, when I'm mad, I can be productive. When I'm sad and mopey, I'm useless, So I don't know what your take is on that.
I think it's okay to cry at significant events, especially ones that you would feel vulnerable with. There's divorce, there's funerals, there's, especially with grief, losing someone. There's, when someone important in your life gets hospitalized, and then there's moments of joy when, some people cry when their child is born, when they graduate. Especially for me, when I graduated not graduated boot camp, when I earned that title of Marine on the Crucible, I'm not gonna lie, I stood there when they were handing us that Eagle Globe and Anchor after our long, I don't know how many days or hours, our Crucible hike. I actually cried because I felt a moment of accomplishment and of joy. I think, like you said, there's appropriate times to cry. and like in your situation, it was appropriate to cry because you needed to move forward. Even if you cried and you felt anger afterwards, you just needed that step of. I think crying is a step of acceptance, right? Just to move forward with what's going on with your life. I believe I'm gonna share this because I want to be open. There was a time when I was very vulnerable, and me and my wife, were fighting, and we actually went over to Joe's house, and I think you were there, right, Spence? And I stayed in the car because I didn't want to escalate things or cause a commotion. I was being respectful to my wife's family. And then you came out, and then you sat in I think you sat in the driver's seat of the car because I was in the passenger seat. And you started asking me questions. And that was a moment of vulnerability for me. I started crying. It is the first time I've actually cried to another man, especially my brother-in-law. So through that moment, I think it helped me with my personal growth. It helped me with my relationship with you, because you're one of those, on my wife's family, you are one of those in-laws or people that I actually can have a conversation with. So that kind of, advanced our relationship as brothers. So, but yeah, that was a very tough moment because it wasn't a good time at that spot, but you managed to bring out a lot of my emotions, and I cried in front of you. So
I'm glad you brought that up because I was debating about bringing it up. I think I was going to bring it up. I was going to tell you to cut it out if you didn't want me mentioning that, but we've never talked about it since. But it was a moment that I was glad to share with you, not because it's like, oh, I need to see this guy cry, but it's more like, to me, like, we're in the house waiting for you guys to get there. Samantha walks in. We're like, where's Michael? She's like, oh, he being stupid. Blah, blah, blah. Like she's just being like, I'm like, oh, these guys had a fight. I'm like, okay, look, whatever. But to me, it was just important to, I need to go check on this guy because he needs to understand that he's part of the family, that we care about him too. It's not like, oh, we just care about my sister and you're just the guy she drags along. It's like, no, you're my brother now, And I was like, I need to go out to sit with him and just tell him, look, whatever's happening between you guys, that's between you. But the family loves you. We're here for you as much as we're here for my sister because you're her other half now, and just sat there and, and the thing is I was just talking at you, because, as we've established before, you've opened up a lot in this podcast format, but in person, Michael was a very quiet person. And so he was just sitting there, not doing any time. I just went out, hey man, love you. I know living with Samantha is kind of like this and that. Samantha, I promise I wasn't throwing you under the bus. I'm just trying to reach out to my brother here, though. And then you got to the point where it just kind of came up. And I was just like, I just had my hand on your back. I'm like, hey, it's good. Just let it out. We never even really talked, I think, about resolving an issue, but that's all you needed. It was like afterwards, you were ready to come in and never brought it up since, So, but I was glad that you knew that you could open up around me. And this reminds me of, I guess, as far as health, because you've talked about mental health a lot in this podcast, and that's kind of an ongoing theme that we have. I didn't know how serious you were with suicidal thoughts and tendencies until you opened up about it, like on this stuff. And so when I think of that, and then I think of when you opened up later on about these bad thoughts that you'd been having, in other past time periods, it reminds me of, there's this UFC fighter named Paddy Pimblett. I'm not the biggest fan of Paddy, but he's a cool guy, whatever. But there's one time when he won his fight and he's giving his victory speech. And to me, it's one of the greatest victory speeches ever, because he doesn't talk about fighting, doesn't talk about beating a guy and calling someone out. He was talking about his friend who just, I think the day before or the week before the fight, had committed suicide. His friend killed himself. And Patty said, in his victory speech, he's like, guys, we got to start talking. We got to start talking to each other and letting it out. Because I wish my friend had talked to me before he did that thing. And he says, I would rather have my friend cry on my shoulder than carry his casket. And I was like, dang, like that's a powerful thing. So when we talk about is it good for men to cry? I'm like, you know what? If the alternative is us offing ourselves, then yeah, like it is. But, time and a place for everything. I do stand by that. But overall, I'd rather have you default to letting it out than, letting it off.
And I just want to thank you for that moment, because, when it comes to difficult situations like what we went through, or for our audience, if you're going to go through it with someone in the future, sometimes you don't even need to say anything. You just need to be there by their side. Because when someone is in that mental state, they don't want to listen to anyone. Yeah, you will be able to talk to them, but they may not be listening to your words. But what you, Spencer, did was you sat there and you talked to me, and me just knowing that you were there for me, that kind of opened the floodgates and made me cry ugly. And but that was a good opportunity to kind of advance, to kind of heal and move forward from what the situation we were in. So yeah, that's sometimes all you need to do is just be there. You do not need to exchange words or have deep and long conversations.
Now, I want to throw out this question. We got a few questions oriented to this subject, and and by the way, I'm glad. Thank you for opening up to me on that. I'm happy to share that moment with you. But just kind of shifting gears a little bit, there's this question: how comfortable are you crying in front of your partner? Do you think it deepens or challenges the relationship? Now, this one I'm particularly interested in. I've got some. I don't know if I want to say I have a strong opinion on it, but I have a strong tendency to be cautious with this one. But let me hear your take on that first, Michael.
I'm going to be honest again. I'm just going to go off my relationship, because my relationship, a lot of people are probably going through the same thing, or have been going through the same thing I'm going through. But we talked about crying in front of your partner, your spouse, or especially someone you're intimate or close with. I would say, and with my experience, it's not a good idea to cry in front of them. And why I say this is because, to me, now you're seen as weak. The person who's supposed to have your back, or is your partner, spouse, now sees you as a weak man. And I'm sharing this because, women, they talk a lot, and they'll say, it's okay for men to cry. We can accept it. We can feel empathy. We can feel and understand what you're going through, but they don't. And the reason why I bring this up is because I don't want to throw my wife under the bus, but this might help someone else. Is because when you get into fights, right, and arguments, they will use it against you. And a lot in marriage, in relationships, they may not mean to do it, but all these will come out. They'll call you. They'll bring out that moment where you cried in front of them, and that will make you feel some type of way, and that will hurt you, because this is your partner. You trusted them, and then they're using it against you. So that's my experience. It's just to make it relatable to our audience. It's not it's dangerous to cry in front of your partner. But I'm not saying that my wife is not a good person. No, it's how she copes. Same like the rest of everyone. When you fight, all you really see is red. So you don't have filters on what you say. So just be careful, especially when crying in front of your partner.
And you're kind of confirming like where a lot of my suspicions are, because I think there are exceptions. Like if somebody very close to you dies, I don't know if your spouse will be that cruel. I hope not, but you are right. In my experience, I think men are better at controlling our emotions. And I'm not trying to dig into like this rah women are emotional stuff, but I'm just saying about that. It is my experience that when we get heated, there's still a line that we don't cross. And I'm not saying all men, obviously there's exceptions to all of this, but I think men have a tendency to not cross the line as soon, whereas women, it's everything is on the table. It's like everything that they know that you're insecure about or sensitive about, that's flying in your face right now. And I was like, and it hurts, because I'm like, dang, man, I would never have thrown that at you, but you threw it. What, really? But then it's also like, I don't think it's even a conscious choice. And this is what I'm, I guess, wary of, is you hear it all the time. Like I've heard like some guys say this on other podcasts, or women talking about this on other podcasts, where it's like, oh yeah, I really like this guy, and he stood up for me when these guys were talking smack, and then he got his butt kicked, and then I could never look at him the same again. I'm like, wait a minute. So the guy like stepped up. He didn't run away. He stepped up to defend your honor. He took his licks because of it, and you can't respect him still because he came out on the short end. And it's like, I think there's a degree of that where I'm cautious that there's a degree of that where even subconsciously a woman will say, oh no, you can cry in front of me. It's okay. Just open up. But I do fear that she will subconsciously think less of you. Just like she can't help it. You stood up. It doesn't matter that you took your shots and you came out on the short end. All she's going to remember is this dude got his butt kicked. All she's going to remember is this dude cried like a punk, like I'm cautious of that. Maybe I'm damaged, whatever. I'm overly cautious, but I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I don't think you can. And like you said, it's ammo so that when you get in an argument, that will come up and it'll fly your way. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we're wrong for that. But I agree with you on that. Like I would not dare cry in front of my partner, but it's okay because I'm single, so no worries there.
especially if you're starting off dating. Don't be crying in front of your partner, because they'll think you're weak, and who knows, they might stop dating you and all that stuff, because now they've, what's the word, unconsciously, is that the word, perceive you as
unconsciously
weak.
Or subconsciously.
That.
Yeah, but man, whoever I date, get ready. If I ever take you to church, you better never hear me talk or give testimony, because I'm a baby nowadays, man. I used to keep it all in, but like when I do church stuff, if I'm feeling it, like it just comes out. I think everybody in my ward is like, man, there's the dude who cries all the time. But I'm like, hey, all I have to say to that, I think it's John 11:35. I think it's like the shortest verse in the whole scriptures. It just says, Jesus wept. But that's the story of, I believe that's when Lazarus, Jesus was summoned to save Lazarus, and he died on his way there. And by the time he got to Lazarus's home, his family came out and they fell at his feet and they're crying, oh, I wish you were here earlier. You could have saved him, but it's too late. He's gone. And it just says, and Jesus wept, because he could empathize, sympathize with his family, just lost their loved one. Their pain was something he felt. And he was so open to other people's pain that he cried to cry with them, even knowing that he was about to raise him from the dead and bring him back. The fact that they hurt that much, he wept. So I'm like, so don't ever come at me and try to hold it over my head if I get choked up in testimony meeting, okay? Or else you need to repent. No, I'm just kidding.
So are you more likely to cry in private And why do you think that is? So for me, I'm gonna give an example. One day I was, in transition, going from work to home, and I was playing some Lani Alo music, and I started having tears. I started crying because it was a moment of nostalgia. Because every time I listen to Samoan music, especially one that kind of targets hardship and struggles, it kind of takes me back to like the old days when things were simple. When we were young, we didn't have responsibilities. We weren't adults. So I cried because it brought back a lot of memories when I was, childhood memories, good memories of how things were easy, and now things are complicated and a little bit harder as adults. And now we have to find and navigate our lives, as we continue to grow. So yeah, that was a moment. A lot of times when I'm driving in transition, whether I'm going to work or going home or going to school, I would get those moments where I would shed a tear or suddenly become overwhelmed with emotions. I don't know. Maybe you cry more because you're getting older. You think that's more like a chemical imbalancing where we're losing testosterone as men? Because I've noticed that as we grow older, I'm starting to like cry more often when there's moments that happens in life, with the kids, with accomplishments or whatever it may be.
I mean, I never thought of it like that, but you're probably onto something there. Getting older, your T levels start dropping. Maybe like the guard isn't up as much as anymore. That could be it. I don't know. I think also maybe the older you get, the more life experience you've had, and you just got a little more weight on you. Like man, so. I don't like admitting it, but I do get emotional sometimes when especially like you hit that right song. There's this kid named I think it was like Robert French or something. He went viral for a while on TikTok and whatnot. I don't have TikTok, so it got to me late, but I found him on Instagram. But he's a singer songwriter, really talented kid. His practice is that every day he writes a song until he gets tired. It's just one thing he does to get his practice up. And he's a young guy, but his father passed away. And he has a song called Robert's Place. And it really hit me because my dad's name is Robert. And he's just singing about visiting his dad's grave. That's Robert's Place, is his dad's grave. He starts singing. There's this line in there where he's like, I'm going to Robert's place. Is there beneath the tree? I don't know if he will recognize because my face has gotten older and I've got more on my shoulders, but I still hold on to his pretty eyes. And I was like, my face has gotten older and there's a lot more on my shoulders. I think that has something to do with it. Is like, as time goes on, like, we've experienced more, we felt more. So maybe it just kind of adds up. It's like the dam's about to break, but might be something like that. But anyways, I definitely kind of, I'm more prone to it nowadays, but publicly, like outside of church, nope. Like I try to hold it in. It's like, but it's also because I feel like while I'm not married still, there's other things, like I got to be strong for people. It's like, even I don't have a partner in my life, but there's other people that kind of look to me for that stuff. I don't want it's weird to say, but I don't want my nieces here in Las Vegas. Like I have dinner with them every once in a while, and I don't want them to see me like that because I don't know why. I feel like it's like they need a strong male presence in their life, and they might look to me like that. But do I really think my nieces will look at me as lesser? No, not really. They're great nieces, but I'm like, I feel like I owe it to them to give them an example of a strong male. I don't know. Maybe that's stupid, but I'm trying to also be there for my mom. My mom often refers to me as her right hand, and it's like, and without a spouse, like my mom is the number one woman in my life. Like that's my number one right there. It's like I have to be strong for her. It's like, I don't know. It's like, I feel like no one's imposed it on me. It's definitely self-imposed, but I feel like I don't let it out publicly. But yeah, privately, like I think the I mentioned before how I refused to let it out when I was going on my deployment and going through my divorce. Because even afterwards, even like at the beginning when we got divorced, didn't let it out because I felt like I was angry still. The anger that I built up, like I had it was hard for me to not rely on that. That was my safety mechanism because I'm like, no, why should I be sad? I'm not the one who wanted this. She should be sad, not me. Like, but it came out when I became a trucker because after the divorce, I bounced at the club for a year, needed a year-round job, became a trucker, and then I was completely by myself. Nothing but solitude. I'm just driving all over this country, seeing all the landscapes. I loved it, but it gave me a lot of time to reflect because there was nobody else in my day-to-day life. It was just me and the road. And I did have that reflection time. And so like, yeah, it did bubble up then, but it actually was really good for healing. But it was but it was in solitude around nobody else. I had no choice in that matter because I'm stuck in a truck in the middle of the road. So I'll just probably be on the side of the freeway, just, bawling my eyes out. Nobody would know. So.
But yeah, you mentioned your nieces. I know you're not a father, but do you think it's important for fathers to show their emotions in front of children? I know you already briefly touched upon it, and why it's important. For me, with what I know now, I think it's very important to show our kids how we feel, especially crying, especially for our sons. If we want to pass down empathy, emotional openness to the next generation, we have to kind of show it, right? So I have a difficult time showing it to my daughters, being open with my emotions. So crying in front of them, I may have done it maybe once, but overall I haven't shown them. I haven't cried much or cried at all since then. But I don't think they would remember that I cried because they were little. But I think it's important to kind of break that. I think it's a barrier, a cultural barrier. What we've learned from my parents, not to show emotions and not to cry. In order for us to break that barrier, we have to show it to the next generation. I still struggle with that with my daughters. They mostly go to my wife when they seek emotional things like compassion or when if they're crying, they will go to my wife instead of me. But that's one thing that I continue to work on, and I think it's going to come out more as I grow older because I'm thinking it's a testosterone thing, but that's there's that feeling where you don't want to look weak in front of your kids. But at the same time, you kind of have to sacrifice it in order for them to learn. Which I think I'm lucky I don't have sons, because I would be a horrible role model when it comes to emotional openness. But for my daughters, I don't have to worry about that because my wife handles that.
It's funny because when I was having this conversation at the Vaikava session, it made me think. I'm like, man, has my dad can I ever remember a time where I saw my dad cry? And I was like, I don't think I have. Like, I really don't. I have no memories of my dad shedding a tear. And it's weird because I even tried to think back to his mom's funeral, my grandma. And my dad loved his mom. Like, she lived with us for years. When she couldn't take care of herself, she lived with us and we took care of her. But I don't remember him crying. And so like when I think of like that rock, when you talk about like, you want to be strong, you want to be the rock for the family, because it's like, while everyone else is going through it, you're the solid one that's getting everything, like handling all the funeral arrangements, handling this, handling that. Do I think it's possible he shed his tears? I think it's absolutely like likely that he did, but he never showed it. I do not have a memory of my dad shedding tears, but that is also coming from a guy who, like I said, never really came at me like, "Hey, men don't cry," other than like when teaching the stuff that I mentioned at the beginning of this. He never stood on the solid machismo, men never cry thing. But that being said, through his example, I don't remember him crying. So I don't know. I guess there's something to say with that. I think it is important to show your kids there's a balance, but I guess when it comes down to it, there's a time and a place. But I won't weigh too much on that because I can only come at it from the perspective of an uncle. Maybe someday I'll be a dad. We'll see, but we'll see. I'll sort it out then. For now, I'll just try to be the macho uncle. So I've got another question I want to throw out from here. It says, what's your take on the idea that crying can actually show strength, not weakness in men? How does suppressing emotions affect men's mental health in your experience? I guess we kind of touched on that. Have you ever felt the pressure to hold back tears because of how it might be perceived? Some of this we touched on, but I think specifically that first part. What's your take on the idea that crying can actually show strength and not weakness in men? Think there's anything to that?
I think we've covered most of the question, but I want to focus on the mental health aspect and kind of tie it to what you just asked, because I think crying can really help with our emotional health when it comes to mental health. So again, for our viewers, mental health is not a bad thing. It's let me restart that. Mental health is the condition of your mental state. But when you go to illnesses like depression, anxiety, that's when it's called mental health illnesses. Because a lot of people, when they hear the word mental health, automatically they'll think, oh, it's bad, it's taboo, they go straight for the bad things. But it's in the word health. But back to the question, so in certain circumstances it actually does show strength, but as we've talked in the previous questions, we showing weakness, we kind of have to be careful with it, depending on the circumstances. But ultimately, I do believe that it's a show of strength, because you're able to be vulnerable to another person. That in itself is a strength, because it takes a lot of courage, a lot of trust, and strength to actually cry in front of another person, because you're at a very vulnerable state. So that's my short thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think about this idea of like that crying shows strength, and I'm trying to think of someone I know, like who's a strong person you know that you have seen cry, and like is where it's like, oh man, no, this dude's so respected, like I could never lose respect just because he shed a few tears. I know that there's some figures in my life like that, but it's not coming to mind right away. Like I said, like I've never seen my dad cry. I don't have any memories of him shedding tears. I'm positive it's happened, but it's never been around me. Man. Okay, how about this though? And there are situations where if somebody doesn't cry, but you're put off by it, like, why is this guy not crying? You know what I mean? And so, like, I think of just a year ago, my Uncle Reed passed away, and rest in peace, Uncle Reed. And it was actually a happy gathering with the family. We got together, celebrated his life. It was nice just sharing company with the cousins again. And my cousin Nuffo to me is like one of the like strong men. When I think of strong men in my mind, Nuffo comes to mind, which is weird because he's in the Air Force, but no, he is like never question that guy's machismo, but I lost it. I have a thing where if I attend funerals, when I hear taps being played, it wrecks me, like it guts me. And I remember Nuffo let the tears let it go. But of course, it's his dad. If he hadn't shed tears, I would have been more concerned. Like, bro, what's wrong? But because Norfolk doesn't show that kind of emotion often. He is like the tough machismo guy, but that's the time and the place where he let it out. And I don't think less of him. And I was relieved to see that he let it out then, because there are times and places where it's like, bro, if you're not crying, I gotta like ask, bro, are you okay? Because like I almost gotta think you're emotionally dead inside or something.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of funerals ever since I was married to Samantha. A lot of people on all her sides of family have passed away, and you see, all the reactions of people in the funerals. But I don't think I haven't seen anyone who hasn't cried, especially when it comes to a loved one or close individual to their lives. But most situations I've encountered, you know how funerals are, they schedule it like 2 weeks to like 2 months out. But I think we don't see them crying anymore because they've already mourned. They already have a mourning period, especially if a funeral has been scheduled to like 2 months out. But yeah, that's in my experience. I don't think I've come across anyone that I've been put off with, questioning why isn't this person crying when you're supposed to cry? Because I think I understand, especially in funerals, that they've already been through their mourning period, and now they're, like you mentioned, in funerals is when families come together. Now they're trying to enjoy the company of their families. They're happy. They're just being in the moment. But, they're probably crying silently and privately once we all leave. And yeah, we don't see that side of a lot of people. But yeah, I'm still sitting here wondering if I've ever come across anyone. The only thing I've come across are the documentary on Netflix. When you watch all these serial killers and how their reactions to when they commit murders. But other than that, nothing in my actual life. Which leads me to this question: how do you feel about how men are perceived? Men who cry are portrayed in movies or on TV. Does it really reflect reality, or is it media is just making it worse?
I guess it depends on the movie. Like, I think a really good film came out. I think it was earlier this year, or maybe it was last year. It's called The Iron Claw. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's on HBO Max right now. I recommend it. It's about this like family of pro wrestlers, right? Like the dad got into pro wrestling, married the mom, they had kids. All the sons were like, hey, this is the family business and all this stuff, and like they were really raised on this like macho image kind of stuff. But it was like, but that was the family business. But it just shows the kind of generational damage that was done to it. And I think close to the end, the oldest brother is dealing with, like, I believe one of the brothers, spoiler alert, killed himself and all this other stuff. And it's like the older brother was really just being the rock that was holding the whole family together. And at the end, he just breaks down, and his sons come up to him, and and he's like, "You shouldn't see me like this." And like, "Why, Dad?" And he's like, "Because men shouldn't cry." It's like after everything this guy's been through, all the pain that this guy has dealt with, and it's like he's still trying to be like, men don't cry. He didn't want his kids to see him like that. And his kids kind of were helping him heal at the end, just being like, "No, it's okay. Like, we still love you." So I think that's a good example of a film that touched on that subject. But like I said, it depends on the film. But I don't know. I'll be the first to even admit, though, I am kind of a jerk. There's sometimes where I'll see people. Okay, so for example, I'll watch like The Ultimate Fighter, the reality show. I'll see these guys They're away from their families because they're at the Ultimate Fighter house and training with these coaches, and they have to fight once a week and all this stuff. And they start crying like, I miss my wife. You know, she's my rock. And I'm just like, bro, this whole film takes place. They film the season in 6 weeks. That's not even a whole basic training, dog. Like, this ain't you're not on deployment. You're not even at basic training. 6 weeks. Suck it up. You know, I'm like, bro, come on. I have no sympathy for stuff like that. And so sometimes I see people crying in media and I'm like, suck it up, pussy. No, I don't know. How about you, man?
Yeah, it can lean both ways. It can either be your reaction where you say, "Hey, suck it up. It's not even a big deal," or if it's like a TV show or contest and they're trying to win some, contestants are competing, then the TV will make it where it's very emotional, exaggerated, so that it can actually touch the audience's feelings. And then this was the case of a lot of, The Voice, America's Got Talent. There's always that competitor or contestant where they tug at your heartstrings because of their story of, whether they're going through sickness, health, or a loved one who's died or something like that. But yeah, media, I think just makes things worse because it's exaggerated. It's not real, but it can make things feel authentic. I don't want to call people out or name people on any shows, but yeah. But you know what's worse in TV are the Korean dramas, the Chinese dramas, the Filipino dramas. When there's a cry scene, whether it be a man or a woman, they will drag out the scene 3 minutes to 5 minutes trying to make them cry. But in reality, it only takes 30 seconds for them to cry and wipe their tears and walk. But no, they have to drag it out. And I'm like, are they for real? And then they go into their commercial break and then they come back and then they're still crying. But those scenes are funny to me. So that's why people do not believe everything you see on media, social media, or TV. Okay.
Especially out of Korea.
It's just about those people who cry on their TikTok reels or their social media reels,
bro. I'm glad people called them out on that because it's so stupid, man.
Yeah, you have time to record yourself and your sob story instead of fixing your problem.
Like, all these chicks that are like, me processing the worst breakup of my life. And I'm like, yeah, I'm glad you had the cognition to set up the camera, get it just angled. It's like, okay, record. And then you get in position and just start crying and like throwing a tantrum. I'm like, you freaking child. Like, come on. You just wanted the sympathy points, whatever. But yeah, no, I think we've explored this pretty well. Good conversation. Hey, we got through it without any kava too. So that's bonus points, But yeah, kava makes me emotional. So maybe that's where I'll open up a little bit more. But one of these days we'll maybe we'll do a podcast around a bowl. Who knows? But I want to leave off with one thing. So there's one last thing before we go. What is a movie or show? And this is fitting since we were just talking about media. What's one movie or show that when you watch it, it hits you like that, and you're like holding it back, like, don't cry, Like or one that you can think was like the first one that made you cry, something like that,
Well, I remember when I think I was single at the moment in barracks. The movie Slumdog Millionaire actually made me cry. But
That's a good movie.
I wasn't really bawling, but it kind of like, you get that feeling where like inside your heart is kind of breaking. Like every time you cry, you get that feeling where it's just your heart crumbles. That movie somehow made me cry. And I specifically remember it because it just brought out some emotions in me that never thought I would have, especially for a movie. Sure, there's probably movies nowadays that have made me kind of shed a tears, but Slumdog Millionaire is just one of those big memories that I have, like actually crying.
So I haven't seen that movie since it came out. I remember when it came out, that was a big movie. Like everybody's talking about that. So I need to go back and rewatch it. Not to cry though. That was it. But for me, I think one that gets me every time, and I remember this since I was a kid, and it still has this effect on me as an adult, probably more so as an adult, which is weird. But I was always a big fan of The Simpsons. And there's this, and the funny thing, what I loved about The Simpsons, it was so funny and silly, but when I wanted to get emotional, it was a punch in the gut. And there's this episode, it starts out, it's so doofy. It's like Homer's trying to get out of like work or something, and so he fakes his own death. And then like people thought it was real, and so like he had a funeral, or like there was a grave spot there, and he goes to the plot where he was, his fake dead self was supposed to be, and his mom shows up, and you realize, oh, you've never seen Homer's mom. She actually abandoned him as a kid, and then he finds out why, and now they're making up for lost time, and then they go through all this stuff. But at the end of the episode, she's got to leave him again because she's a fugitive on the run, and so he helps her escape. And then at the very end, even though they lace it with jokes the whole way. Even when he says goodbye, there's a one last joke where she like gets in the van and like bonks herself on the head, and when she does it, she says "don't," and that's where Homer gets it from. And then she just leaves, and Homer, instead of going home and wrapping it right there, they start rolling credits with this final scene of just Homer sitting on the hood of his car, just looking at the stars, and it's just like so sad. Like I don't know, and it might be too because they did that in the desert. I grew up in 29 Palms, so it looked like a 29 Palms kind of desert. But I was just like, man, he finally got his mom back, and now she has to leave again. But it's still it's like a somber feeling because it's like he's happy that I got to see her, but he's sad that she has to go again. It's just like this perfect ending to me. Is that it always like I see that even as an adult, and I'm just like, oh, that's tough. I don't know why. Anyways, I'm a pansy, so that'll probably do it for today. I don't know. You have any last thoughts on this, Michael?
There is one movie that had me questioning my faith and my religion. When that movie, Passion of the Christ, came out, and I watched it twice in theater, and everyone around me was crying, especially when the scenes when he was getting whipped. But I was like, does this make me not a Christian if I cried? So it kind of made me like question, does it make me look heartless if I didn't cry during the Passion of the Christ? So that just stood out to me because everyone in the theaters was crying, and I was like just watching it with no emotions. So that kind of made me feel very awkward at that moment. But yeah.
No, that's funny. Actually, I remember there was this old joke. It was a Carlos Mencia one, so who knows who wrote it, but it was a pretty good bit where he says like he was sitting down and watching Passion of the Christ, and everyone's crying around him, and he's just like, oh man, I just want to be done with this. And this lady turns to him. She's like, do you not feel any pain, or like are you like so emotionally dead or something like that? And he's just like, I read the book. I know he's gonna come back. he's like, I already know what happens next because I read the book. I thought that was a good one. So now you're solid. Like I get it. Like if you're not crying at Passion of the Christ, you're good. I've still never seen it, so what do I know? All right, so thank you everybody for joining us in our cry session here today. Just be after this, we don't have the ability to license the song, but just remember, everybody hurts, like go listen to something like that, but thanks for letting us get this off our chest, everybody. We love you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for rocking with us behind the lava. Until next time, this is Spencer Harmon and Michael Tan. Go Face Foot.
Working on my interests, it's who I am. I'm trying to make these digits look like EINs. When the help ain't free, you all help me. Salute to folks who turn their names to LLCs. The wealth is in itself to help a non-profit. To be better women or better men, whether business by veterans or common folks with a dream. We're all born with the same strength. We tread waters that were untouched. Let's be on the same wavelength. Behind the lava, front of our eyes. Let our legacy live off it when we're up in the sky. All signs point to us to help someone make a difference. With God as my witness, cause talk business.